Hello again. My name is Scott Webb. I am with C2C Sports Investment Group. I'm the handicapper here, and we're going to talk about the NFL playoff game over the weekend. We're going to start with the AFC game, and this will be a matchup of the New England Patriots against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The line currently is minus 7.5 for New England, and 45.5 as a total. So that key score number is based on Vegas number is 26-19. Obviously, that's going to be a hard number to hit for the 19, but 26-19 is what they're saying, and that gives you the 7 points there. So let's first just talk about it from a perspective of styles, because I think this is where Jacksonville wins certain games that they play. They are a lineup and beat you defense. They play and they win the matchups on the offensive line versus the defensive line. They win with their linebackers. They obviously win with their cornerbacks. So that's how they play teams and beat them. That's specifically what happened in Pittsburgh, for example, last week. They have the ability, because their talent players are generally speaking much better than the other team. The difference here in this game is the styles and how New England plays offense. New England's not going to sit there and line up and try to smash mouth you, and they're not going to try to man-to-man beat you. They are a smart football team with smart offensive-minded coaches, smart defensive-minded coaches, and they are going to scheme you. So that's where this game really settles into. How does this matchup really apply? And does the last week's game even show any merit to what this game is going to be? And I'm going to tell you it has no merit at all. Yes, the players that play the game and the talent that they have are going to be able to make their plays. They're going to get their stops. They're going to make their tackles. They might deflect a pass. They might do all kinds of different things. But when it comes to how games are won and what coaches do to put their players in the best positions to win the game, I don't think there's even any close matchup here. Belichick is a much better game technician, much better understanding of what teams are trying to do against them, much better at what to do against that team than Marone ever would be. So Marone's going to rely on his guys to line up and play football and be all energized and ready to go, and I think they will be. They'll be energized. I think they're walking on water right now, thinking that they are a super team. But there really isn't a super team in this division, unless you want to call the Patriots that. So let's look at that for a second here, because a lot of this is going to be about how does New England score? Can New England score against this defense? This defense lines up and does crazy things, and they get all these sacks and Saxonville and all that stuff. So let's break this down in a couple different ways. So let's talk about the offensive line for the New England Patriots. So one of the things that is kind of interesting in doing the research on this game is, if you look at Pro Football Focus, they rate players by game grades. Then they come out with the overall numbers of what those individual players were. And individually, they're not going to match up to what the talent is on the other side. Your Darius and your Jackson and Campbell and those guys on the defensive line are very, very good for Jacksonville. However, when you blend them together as an offensive line unit and where the strength is, the Pro Football Focus analysis that I agree with actually shows that New England's offensive line has an opportunity here to run the football. In fact, one of the things that I did notice when I looked up on Football Outsiders in how teams move the ball and where they move the ball, almost sabermetric kind of information. It was interesting to me in looking at how some of these teams rate and what happens and where they go. That the Jacksonville defense, when you rush to the left end, going around the left end, they rank 31st in the league. And if you run to the right end, they rank 16th in the league. So those are two spots going outside and both directions. That is a path for success for New England. They also have a position where they don't blitz. So Jacksonville likes to just line up their men, say, hey, we're going to blitz very rarely. They only blitzed on that says they only had rushed four rushers 84% of the time, which means they only blitz 16% of the time. Second to that would be New England. They don't blitz either. So, but for the practical purpose of what we're talking about, this matchup and the alignment is exactly that. They're going to put their guys out there and say, hey, beat us. And what's going to happen in the game is New England's going to put their guys out there and they're going to go, okay, well, we're going to run this route, do this maneuver, make this happen, make you think we're going here. We're going to scheme you in ways that puts our guys in better spots. So some of these things, and I don't want to get too in-depth and technical on the game, so Sharp Analysis gave a great breakdown of how that works and why it will work for New England. And the best way I can say it is that New England uses 1 and 2 wide receiver sets the most in all of pro football. And the number one package that most teams use is 3 wide receiver sets with 1 running back. So as you're looking at breaking the game down, Jacksonville plays that set better than anybody else. However, when they take and have to have 2 tight ends, 2 running backs, 3 tight ends, 1 running back, anything other than having 3 wide receivers, that's where you're going to find that Jacksonville has its flaw, and that's also where you'll find New England will be able to scheme them considerably. So the Jacksonville defense ranks number 23 in the NFL. That's right, Jacksonville's defense, number 23 in the NFL, with any other type of wide receiver package other than 3. So 1 or 2, they rank 23rd in success rate. They rank 28th in yards per pass attempt. They rank 18th in passer rating. Versus when there's 3 wide receivers out there, they rank number 1 in success rate, number 1 in yards per pass attempt, and number 2 in passer rating. So as you can see, that's a matchup advantage that they like because their players are extremely talented. So what happened in Pittsburgh? Pittsburgh did the Ben Roethlisberger behind the center, and they had the 1 running back, Le'Veon Bell, almost exclusively in that game. They got smashed, and they got behind early, and that's what happened. So this game will also not only allow the scheming part for New England, but the New England running backs are going to be a little bit more healthy in this game. You get Burkhead back. It goes to show because of that specific advantage or disadvantage when you talk about Jacksonville against those formations. They are 20th against tight ends and 15th against running backs out of the backfield. So as they start to break that down, you don't have to rely on one guy. You're not relying on the number 1 wide receiver. You're not relying on the number 2 wide receiver. You're relying on a bunch of different variables and a bunch of different packages. And of all the teams in the league that can be patient to move the ball without having to do any kind of crazy passes, it's the New England Patriots and Tom Brady. They do it over and over and over. They are the master of the low-risk offense with the high reward. That's how they move the ball. They're number 1 in the league on offense. They're number one in the league in passing. They're number three in the league in rushing. They're number three in the league in red zone scoring. So, this is an advantage that New England has that matches up to what's perceived to be the biggest strength for Jacksonville that can get actually exploited. And in this particular matchup, I do like New England's offense versus the Jacksonville defense, and most primarily because they're going to scheme them. So let's then turn the ball over to the other side, because I think it's important to realize that if you think about the Jacksonville offense, everybody wants to tell you that it's the number one rated rushing offense in the league because they did have 140 yards per game on the ground. So that particular measurement means they were number one. However, they really aren't a very good running team, and this is what you got to realize. Fournette, since week 8, which week 8 is the bye week, plus the playoffs, his average is not 4.0 yards per carry, which is what a good running back averages. It's actually 3.3, so it's very low. They also are in a spot here where the defense has become much better for New England over the course of time. If you discount those first 4 games, their defense has only given up more than 17 points twice in the remaining part of the year. So 16 games, the first 4, they gave up a ton of points. You take away those first 4, so that leaves 12 games left. They gave up more than 17 points twice in those 12 games. So you can expect the Jacksonville offense to produce 17 or less points. So we're going to start at that level and kind of go down because I don't think they're actually going to get to 17 in this game. Typically what happens too is with Bortles feels pressure, he likes to run. He's not a guy that stands in there and throws. So I would expect him to run a lot. And the key here is Fournette running last week after the game was 28-17. That's when Fournette got injured. In the second half after Fournette got injured, the Pittsburgh won the game 28-17. So he was not explosive. He plodded all over the field. He plodded forward. He didn't make his cuts. So that's not going to work against Jacksonville, and their backup running backs aren't nearly as explosive or as nearly as good as Fournette is. So that's one of their major weapons. Really, it's kind of their number one weapon when you look at what they do on offense. Their success rate rank is 17th rushing the football. And the biggest thing for them in terms of this game is they've got to get first down yardage. If they don't, they are 26th in the league on second down and medium, 25th in the league on second down and long. They are 21st in the league on third down and medium. They are 29th in the league on third down and long. So they run a lot of play action passes, and if they can't get first down yardage to a point where they can have manageable second and third downs, this is going to be a long day for the Jacksonville offense. So I think that kind of looking at it from that perspective and putting a bow around some of this, there's a very big path for success for the New England Patriots, and it's plain as day. There is a very small path for success, if there's really any path for success for Jacksonville. So how does that kind of play out? Well, some of these things that I think that you got to look at here is when you think about who has because I want to kind of break down even more to this Jacksonville defense. Their 5 worst games have all happened since week 10. And the quarterbacks in those games were Ben Roethlisberger, Jimmy Garoppolo, Phillip Rivers, Russell Wilson, and Blaine Gabbert. Now, Gabbert had a big day against him. So when you think about those guys and what kind of passers they are, those are prolific, better passers than some of the other guys other than Gabbert per se. So who have they really played, and what have they really done? And let me give you just a little bit of idea here. Here's the list because I kind of wrote it down and I thought it would be great for you to get. Here's a list of quarterbacks that this defense has faced. So they start off the season, they faced Tom Savage. Then they played Marcus Mariota, and then obviously they end up playing him twice. They played Joe Flacco, Josh McCown. They played Ben Roethlisberger, Jared Goff. They played Jacoby Brissett twice, Andy Dalton, Phillip Rivers, Deshaun Kaiser, Blaine Gabbert, Russ Wilson, T.J. Yates, Jimmy Garoppolo. And those were games that they played and actually, won most of those. They didn't play all of them, but they played They lost to Mariota twice. They lost to McCown. They lost to Goff. They lost to Gabbert, and they lost to Garoppolo. So I think when you start to think about it, where are all the big name quarterbacks that this team has played? They played depending on who you look at, they played the 30th or the 31st or the 32nd worst schedule, easiest schedule in the league. And if you look at those quarterbacks, it really shows. And the other interesting thing to note here too is that this team had 56 sacks. So that's why they call them Sacksonville. Well, against the Indianapolis Colts and against the Houston Texans in 2 games, one against Houston they had 10 sacks, and one against Indianapolis they had 10 sacks. So that's 20 of those 56 sacks was in those 2 games. And then they played them a second time, and they got 8 more. So 28 sacks of their 56 sacks, which is half, came against 2 opponents. Came against Jacoby Brissett. So, and then it came against, T.J. Yates and Tom Savage. So does that really merit strength? I wouldn't say that it doesn't give them credit for having strength, but I would tell you that that level of competition versus the level of competition they're going to see on Sunday is a night and day dramatic difference. And then lastly, some of these things that really are going to play into play here too. Jacksonville coming into the playoffs was the 12th of all the 12. There are 12 teams in the playoffs. They were ranked 12th in special teams of the 12 special teams. So they were the absolute worst. And New England is actually second of those 12. So there's a big edge for Jacksonville on New England on kickoffs. There's a big edge for them for field position when it comes to that. And then there's also a big kicking edge with field goals and extra points. So there's a lot to be said for the idea that New England is going to be able to muster enough offense. They're going to be able to move the ball. They can also stop the Jacksonville offense. We didn't spend a lot of time on the Jacksonville offense. I don't know that it's that important. One of the big things that Jacksonville can do, and one of the weaknesses for New England, is passing over the middle. So if Bortles and they can operate in a way that they can run a lot of crossing routes and get some things in the middle, that's a path for success for them. But think about it. If they're in a position where they have to drive the field every time, if they're in a position because of punting and because of kickoffs and different things that they've got to go 75, 80 yards every single time, it's just not going to happen. And that's why when you think about New England not allowing more than 17 points in the last 12 games that they had, but twice, this is not the kind of offense that's going to be able to do it. Yeah, their defense could make a turnover that puts them in the right spot, but creating a short field. But those kind of come far and few between. Even last week when New England played Tennessee scored first. They had 7 points, but yeah, they still lost and got blown out in that game. So here's another note that I made that I think plays real heavy in this game. Jacksonville has been playing 5 straight weeks. This is their 4th away game in those 5 weeks, and these are the top tier teams in the AFC that they're playing. So the competition level has gotten better. So these guys are on their last legs, so to speak, when it comes to wear and tear on their body, wear and tear of travel, those kinds of things. New England, this will be their fourth home game in 5 weeks. Now, keep in mind that one of those weeks was a bye week, so they didn't even play. So they're a really rested team. Their guys are coming back from injury, and the last 3 games have been so, I don't want to call them, cakewalks or easy, but they won by 21, they won by 20, and they won by 21 again. So really, how stressed were they in those games, and how much demand on their body has it been? Now, the biggest question mark that has come in, and quote, why the line has moved and some different things is because of Tom Brady's hand. Obviously, I'm not in New England. I'm not somebody who can get information in a way that New England's not giving out. However, I would tell you that based upon what I have seen and what looks to be the case, is that there's no dislocated finger, there's no broken bones, there's nothing there that prevents him being Tom Brady from throwing the ball. And from all practical purposes, the glove trick is all about covering up stitches or whatever because he hit his hand on somebody, and from what I understand, it is cut. And anytime that you get a hand bleed or a head bleed, things like that, it bleeds more than normal. So yeah, cause for concern, but I really don't think Tom Brady's going to play any different than he normally always plays. I think he's going to be at his best. I think he wants this challenge. I think he's going to be ready to attack this defense, and I think that he's going to have a reasonable amount of success. So the spread is 7.5. The over and the under is 45.5, and I'm going to give you 2 plays on it. My score in the game is more like 27-13 or even 31-13. I don't think that Jacksonville gets more than 1 touchdown. I think maybe if they get 2, it's 17, 27-14 or 31-14. I think that Jacksonville is going to run into some troubles in the red zone. I think they're going to have a harder time moving the ball because Leonard Fournette is hurt. So I'm looking at a 7.5 as a great number. I think that the best way to play it is to go and say we're going to play the New England Patriots minus the 7.5. If it gets to 8, that's okay. If it's 8.5, I'm okay with that too, because I don't think this is going to stay within 10 points. I would also tell you that I think that there's a good teaser option here. The teaser would be is to take New England minus 1.5, because anytime that you're moving a teaser line and you're moving it beyond the 7, which is the first key number, and then you're moving it beyond 3, that's 2 key numbers. If you can move it within those 2 key numbers, I think you've got a pretty good successful teaser. And in this case, if you took New England minus 1.5 and under 51.5, that would be a good teaser bet, because I'm going to give you the play at under 45 or 45.5, whatever number you get. It might even be 46 by the time it goes, because I think the Jacksonville defense is good enough to slow down New England. I think New England's going to have a time of possession advantage that they're going to need to use to actually move the ball. So I don't think they're going to be able to rattle off a whole bunch of points. I'm not sure there will be a lot of big plays, so it's going to be slow moving down the field. But I think that they're going to be in a position where they don't worry about that big play. They're going to take the methodological approach and go across and make it happen for them. So here's the 3 plays. We're wrapping them up. New England minus 7.5 at 2 units. We're going to go with a teaser on this game, New England minus 1.5 and over 56 or 51.5. I mean, under 51.5. And we're going to do a under, just by itself, under 45.5. Now, tomorrow I'm going to put together a live show on Periscope, and we'll talk about some prop bets for this weekend. All right, fellas, let's make this happen, and good luck.